Tonight, how a nonprofit is putting local food on more plates in Western Newfoundland.
So our slogan's online store, local food.
One of the biggest gaps we see is in access to local fresh food here in this province.
Think of it as an online grocery store, all for local food. I'll tell you all about the relaunch of the Food Hub in Corner Brook.
Protecting wild salmon, hunting and fishing advocates are calling on DFO to do more.
We need the fishery guardians hired on to protect the wild Atlantic salmon from would-be poachers.
Coming up on Here and Now.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. There was a mixture of optimism and disappointment yesterday among those hoping to cash in on the pioneering green hydrogen industry in this province. 4 companies were granted access to Crown lands for the massive developments, but 5 others were rejected. As Terry Roberts reports, one of those overlooked companies says it's not going away.
No public land? No problem, say those behind a clean fuels project at the Port of Argentia.
Our project at the Port of Argentia actually does not require Crown lands to proceed.
It's still in the best port in the province. It still has the strongest, I believe, community support. It's the right size project, and it's garnered the attention of decision makers in Ottawa.
After months of evaluation, the Energy Minister delivered the news yesterday. These 4 companies will move ahead and take the next step to getting their projects off the ground, to harness this province's wind resource for the production of hydrogen and ammonia to help satisfy what experts say will be a hungry global market in the coming years. And they're now the first in line to access vast swaths of public land that is being held in reserve for such projects. Here's the list of 5 companies that will not move forward in the Crown lands process. One of the most surprising, Pattern Energy. Pattern applied for 38,000 hectares of public land. The government is not saying why, but Pattern and 4 others did not meet the standard. It's surprising because of all the attention that the Argentia Renewables proposal has been receiving, including a high-profile visit this week from the Deputy Prime Minister.
You're actually at the very center of probably the most important thing happening in the world today.
So why was Pattern's bid for Crown land thrown out? The company hopes to learn more in an upcoming debrief with government officials. But regardless of the answer, it's full steam ahead, say Port and Pattern officials.
This site contains all of the lands we need to do a first phase project.
We're still focused on being the first to export to Germany.
Pattern is proposing to use up to 6,000 hectares of port land to build a 300-megawatt wind farm, along with a hydrogen ammonia plant and export facility. A price tag of $1.6 billion. And the company hopes to have all the necessary permits by early next year. The need for Crown land would be a factor in Phase 2, which would be years away, but still in the plans, says Pattern.
I want to give the message to the province and the region that by no means have we abandoned any notion of expanding our project into the future.
If there's any disappointment from Pattern, they're certainly not admitting it. In fact, Frank Davis says he believes the Crown lands evaluation process unfolded in good faith. The question now is whether Argentia Renewables unfolds as promised. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, a former St. John's lawyer was released on bail today after being charged with making child pornography. Michael Drover appeared in court today and was released on numerous conditions, including that he stay away from public parks, daycares, and schools, and does not contact anyone under the age of 18. He's set to appear in court again next month. Drover was disbarred in 2017 and is now involved in multiple businesses in St. John's, including the Roastery, a cafe on Memorial University's campus. Well, the Western Newfoundland Food Hub is back and running once again in Corner Brook. The Food Hub is an online shopping experience focused on local meat and produce. It started as a pilot project 2 years ago, and now the focus is on keeping the service around for years to come. Here and Now's Colleen Connors explains.
This is the Food Hub storefront in downtown Corner Brook, the pickup spot for local food.
So this week, I mean, you could have sugar snap peas from Wright's Family Farm. You could have some local lamb from D&D. You can have spring mix from Birch Bark Farm.
Farmers list what they have available each week on the website: meat, fish, vegetables, coffee. Customers go to the website and complete their online order. All the goods get shipped here to the storefront, and then staff bag it up for the customers. Right now, there are 10 producers, but dozens more are interested.
You know, we're trying to make food sustainable. We're in Newfoundland, we're heavily reliant on shipping in food from around the world. We're, relying on the ferry to get it across, and there's all kinds of, delays and disruptions that could potentially happen. So I think if people support the food hub and support local agriculture and other fish producers, meat producers, whatever, then, when disruptions happen around the world, we're going to be more resilient and able to deal with that.
The Food Hub started as a pilot project with some COVID funding in 2021, and it worked. Food First NL found a big partner, a company called Northern Pine, who donated $900,000. That's enough money to relaunch the business and run it for a couple of years. But Food First NL would like to see it grow and become a self-sustaining company, starting with more pickup locations around the West Coast, maybe even cooking and preparing food to sell.
What can we do to maybe process some of the fruit and vegetables and meats that are being produced locally into something that can be sold, say, to a hospital or to a school, to restaurants in bulk, in quantity?
SME would also like to see the Western Food Hub become more of a provincial program. The Western Newfoundland Food Hub also offers job opportunities for youth in the area, from packing orders to cleaning floors. Right now, the goal is to get more farmers selling their food on the website and make the business a year-round thing, all while cutting down on the carbon footprint of food. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Corner Brook.
Well, now to Labrador. Last night we talked about a new shelter in Happy Valley Goose Bay. The Nunavut government will be running it, and the president of that group, Johannes Lamp, says the decision wasn't made lightly. He says they have the trained professionals and skills to help, and Nunavut will work with the Newfoundland and Labrador Housing Corporation to staff the facility.
Slowly taking down programs and services which the federal and provincial governments have been running for as long as we can remember, and I believe that we, with the help of those that have that training, we can do a good job, and most certainly to work with our own, most certainly to look after the health and the well-being of Labrador Inuit that need that help.
Well, back to school time means parents across the province will be opening their wallets, and with the cost of school supplies climbing, fundraising for those in need is more important than ever. That's why a group in Grand Falls, Windsor is stuffing a bus. Here now's Troy Turner reports.
There were bouncy things and bright paint for the faces of kids attending. But behind the laughs, the Stuff the Bus event in Grand Falls, Windsor this week is helping a serious issue.
Consensus is they need our help because the cost of the supplies has doubled, triplicated. They really can't get everything their children need. So we run the assistance program to say, listen, we're going to put the stuff out. What is it you haven't bought yet? What do you need? What can we do to help you? And then the feedback we get from that is what a wonderful support.
The Youth Centre has been doing annual fundraisers for school supplies for about 20 years, but the need continues to climb every year.
We're trying to ramp things back up again, trying to get back into the public donations, the community involvement, and just trying to make it bigger and bigger every year.
For those attending, it's all about helping whatever way you can.
You know, even if you can only help out in a small way, you know, I definitely recommend it. You know, it feels good to help out, and I like to do it whenever I can. And, you know, getting an afternoon with the kids for something fun to do is just a win-win.
It's always good to help people in general, and of course, getting ready for school is not easy. A lot of families find it a big struggle financially and both mentally, just to get ready and make sure that they have all the supplies that they need.
Organizers expect to help 200 families in the area this year.
It's going really good. We've had a nice crowd turn up. We've got families coming in donating monetary, school supplies, having some fun on the bouncy castles, having a snack in the kitchen, going well.
It will continue to be a busy time from here. Barry says the center's staff and volunteers will collect all the school supplies received, as well as purchase new things from the monetary donations received. Then it's off for the distribution on Friday. Troy Turner, CBC News, Grand Falls, Windsor.
Well, speaking of rising prices, the cost of nearly all fuels is up today, with a significant jump in the price of gas in parts of Labrador. The summer price freeze has been lifted from the Straits to Red Bay and Lodge Bay to Cartwright and along parts of the south coast of Labrador. That's pushed the price of gas up 12 cents a litre in those areas. Gas is up a cent a litre in the rest of the province. Diesel, furnace oil and stove oil are also on the rise. They're all up at least 4 cents, while propane is the only fuel to see a price drop.
Well, it's been a wet and humid couple of days across the province. Let's take a look at some of the numbers this afternoon as far as rainfall totals are concerned. Some areas did reach between around 80 to 90 millimeters. St. Mary's and Cartwright being, and even St. Lawrence seeing that along the south coast. As you head towards Witless Bay, Bay d'Espoir, St. John's, between 40 and 80 millimeters. And then up across Labrador even, Goose Bay picked up about 43.4 millimeters of rain. So we do still have a couple of rainfall warnings in place, particularly along the southern Avalon, and then St. John's actually got added to that a little earlier this afternoon, that rainfall warning. If we take a look at what's going on outside right now, you can see it much nicer than it has been for a good chunk of the day as far as showing. About 18 degrees, that humidex still 23. Those winds now out of the west around 41 kilometers per hour, gusting to 54. And if we take a look at the radar picture, most of that heavy rain has moved offshore, and we're going to see this rain ease tonight. I'll get into the details coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Wild salmon conservationists are calling on DFO to extend the contracts of fishery guardians. 90 guardians are hired in the province each year. They start work in spring and are laid off at the end of summer. But recreational anglers say the Federal Fisheries Department should keep them patrolling for longer. Here now's Mark Quinn reports.
Atlantic salmon spawn in rivers like this in the fall. It's a time when they're vulnerable to poachers. It's also the time when DFO lays off fishery guardians.
It makes absolutely no sense.
During salmon season from June to September, fishery guardians make sure everyone is following the rules. They're keeping an eye on anglers. They're also preventing and catching poachers. People who want salmon protected believe guardians are let go too soon, at the very time when salmon are gathering in pools and shallow water.
We need the fishery guardians hired on to protect the wild Atlantic salmon from would-be poachers.
Last year, after a lot of pressure from people like Fordham, the Federal Fisheries Department extended the contracts of about 40 guardians for 4 weeks. Fordham says they should do even more this year.
We want to see them hired on for a longer period of time and for more of them to be hired on.
CBC News asked DFO about this. We received an email from the department saying a decision has not been made on the extensions. The email says a department official will be in touch when they have more information or a decision is made.
Last year they made the decision at the 11th hour. So even though we're at the 11th hour right now, doesn't mean that DFO can't make an extension to those fishery guardians in the contract to keep them all hired on for an extra 4 weeks or even 6 weeks.
Fordham says there were many more salmon in local rivers when he was a boy, and he fears it's something his grandchildren will never see. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Childcare was the big topic on CBC Radio's The Signal today. Neria Aylward is the executive director of the Jimmy Pratt Foundation. She says a recent announcement by the provincial government to try to add more early childhood educators is a step in the right direction, but more needs to be done to retain them.
Before I got into this line of work, I had no idea that early childhood educators, the kind of work that they did and the kind of treatment and compensation they received. And I think that it's worth repeating every time that I'm on every time I do a media interview. Like, Most early childhood educators don't have extended health or dental benefits. They don't have paid vacation time. A lot of them don't have paid sick days. That's something that you would just assume that folks working with young children it's not a luxury, it's a necessity of having kind of a dignified workplace, but even just a workplace that allows you to do your work. Young kids are sick all the time. They're bringing things home. If you don't have paid sick days, what do you do? And so I think it's really important. That's why I think this coalition approach is really important, of parents and educators working together to advocate for better early childhood education and childcare, because we need to understand what it is that the staff are being asked to do. Then it makes you understand why there's a shortage of early childhood educators. And I think we had this announcement last week, I think is a good example of that, we've recruited so many early childhood educators, and they're in our programs. We have fantastic programs in the colleges here. The College of the North Atlantic is introducing a degree program, which is so exciting. But that doesn't mean much if people don't stay, if they're dropping out while they're still trainees, while they're still in school. And we might not get them back. If they're burned out and, if they get knocked out just by one dental bill, we're not going to get them back. It's like dropping water into a leaky bucket. So retention is really important, and there's no reason that this province couldn't be the best place in the country to be an ECE. There's a shortage across the country for all of the reasons that we just talked about. We have a pretty small, we don't have a lot of kids. we don't have a lot of ECEs. So we should take really, really good care of them. So that's talking about pensions. We need to be talking about introducing pensions, health and dental benefits, paid sick days, paid leave, because otherwise we're going to lose these people, and they're doing some of the most important work in our community.
An iconic piece of public art in St. John's is ready to rise from the dumpster. For 30 years, a mural of Sheila's brush loomed over St. John's Harbour. It was taken down without warning in 2021 and thrown in the trash. But thanks to some quick thinking and art-loving volunteers, Sheila's brush has been saved. Now it just needs a new home. Daryl Roberts has that story.
Why did you like this mural so much?
As the city changes and as we get more and more tourists, we have these images that are not exactly created for the version of us that we see. They're more created for the version for the tourists to see. So this piece to me was even more important for that kind of reason, that I felt like it was actually belonged to me as somebody who lives in St. John's. Hi, my name is Diana Daly, and we're here looking at the newly restored Sheila's Brush mural.
So tell me the story of how it was rescued.
We were driving by one night and I saw it on the ground in a snowbank as like garbage with other garbage. So I ran home, posted on Facebook that it had been taken down, got my friend Tim with his truck. We ran down to get it, to load it into his truck. And by the time I got home, it had gone kind of crazy like a party. But all these people were tagging Helen, and everybody was like, go, go, get it, save it. There was such a huge interest in it.
Hi, my name is Helen Gregory. I once upon a time worked for the city of St. John's as a summer job, and I painted a mural called Sheila's Brush. Sort of around like the 80s and 90s, the city of St. John's had the idea of the city of legends. They were billing themselves as the city of legends. And I was sort of trying to find, legends or folklore. And the first one that I settled on was Sheila's Brush.
So how long was it supposed to be up? Did you expect it to be up for so long?
No. And to me, it was starting to look a little rough. I was okay with the idea of it maybe eventually being taken down, but then to sort of see it rescued and to kind of realize that it meant something entirely different to other people, it was a beautiful thing.
Hi, my name is Gary Taylor, and we're just standing in front of the Sheila's Brush mural that I've just restored. It's an old, iconic piece that's been was up for about 27 years down on Harbour Drive, unceremoniously removed and then saved by Diana. And now we're just trying to get it back up and find a new home for it. There's more detail than I ever thought it would be when you see it on the street, because you're not at a close vantage point. But hopefully I did it justice, and hopefully it finds a new home and brings some joy to more people.
Well, we saw lots of rain over the last couple of days. This ridge of high pressure is going to dominate the weather through the weekend. That's good news. I'll talk all about it coming up.
Time for a look at the weather, and in St. John's, at least it was a hot, humid day with lots of rain. But what is that behind you? Is that snow?
Certainly some snow. Trans-Labrador Highway in the higher elevations earlier today woke up to this nice blanket of snow. Did not last long. This is Valerie captured this shot. Didn't last long though this afternoon as temperatures rose up above zero for the most part up across Labrador. Still chilly though compared to what we have been seeing over the last while. Anyway, it seems a bit early as well for some snow, but 9 degrees in Happy Valley Goose Bay today, 8 in Makovic and Cartwright. Not a nice day for those of you in Cartwright this afternoon. Strong winds driving the rain and temperatures into the single digits. Not very nice. Now, we did see rain obviously across the island as well, but much more tropical weather. In fact, when you woke up today, you noticed humidex values into the 30s for eastern Newfoundland anyway this afternoon. If we take a look at where we're sitting now, We're seeing that cold air sweep across the west coast at the moment. Still hanging on to some of that humidity, though, for the eastern half of the island. Down to, well, actually dropping now. Gander down to 17 degrees. That humidex only at 19. But in St. John's is still 18. Feels more like 23. And that's because of where the dew points are sitting. So we're still seeing some of that tropical moisture, 15 to 17 with that dew point. But, you know, in behind that, we're seeing dew points down to 3 in Makkovik, 8 in Corner Brook, so that denotes much drier air, and that will be the story as we head through the weekend because in behind that cold front. Out ahead of that, still seeing some shower activity. It is slowly working its way east and will continue to do so as we head through the overnight tonight. This cold front will also march east, and that will drop those temperatures tonight. But it is tapping into some of that moisture from the 2 tropical systems that we have at the moment. Still Franklin, still expected to pass well south of Newfoundland, and then we have Idalia there, tropical storm Idalia, which will also stay into the Atlantic basin, but we are seeing some of that moisture. That is why it's still humid. It's still pulling from that for eastern Newfoundland. Winds also pretty impressive this afternoon or earlier today, topped out at 87 or 89 kilometers per hour in Cartwright, and those winds gusting somewhere between 50 and about 70 and 80 across the island. But as that system continues to track further to the north, in fact, and away, we will see those winds ease, and we're also going to see the rain end pretty much across the board. We'll likely still see some cloud cover for the Avalon, potentially even a few showers, but for the most part, it will start to end. So these clear skies, I should say, along with a much colder air mass is going to lead to a pretty chilly night tonight. So 2, 3, 4 degrees as your overnight lows up across Labrador. Single digits the story across the island as well. Winds around 20 to 40 kilometers per hour, especially along the coast, anywhere along the coast, and they'll be out of the northwest, hence those cooler temperatures. And then as we head through the day tomorrow, setting the stage for a beautiful afternoon across the island, we may see a few showers develop in the southwestern portion of the island. Clouds generally on the increase up across the Big Land, and you'll also see that chance of a few showers as the day goes on. It will be a fairly unsettled couple of days for those of you across Labrador. However, a ridge of high pressure dominating the weather across the island, and it actually looks like a pretty nice long weekend at this point, with temperatures actually rising. So we're talking about temperatures tomorrow, much cooler, very fall-like, about 14 degrees in St. John's tomorrow with those winds out of the north around 20 kilometers per hour. We may still see the chance of a few showers in the first half of the day, but that should clear out, especially through central. Lots of sunshine, 17 degrees along the south coast, around 15 degrees. As you head towards the west coast, similar temperatures. I mean, with the sunshine, it's going to feel a bit warmer than this, but overall your winds will be out of the northwest between 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. Northern Peninsula, similar temperatures. Really, that's the story up across southeastern portions of Labrador as well. Your winds generally out of the west, 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. And then between 12 and 16 degrees, again, with those unsettled conditions across the Big Land. Like I said, I keep telling you it's going to be nice through the weekend. You're going to have to keep here, and I will tell you what the temperatures will be.
3 moms, 1 dad. A DNA test brings these siblings together for the very first time. We'll have that story coming up. Well, imagine reaching your 70s and finding out you have two siblings you never knew existed. That's what happened to John Connors when he delved into a DNA search and discovered a complicated lineage. He found out he shares a father with two half-siblings in the United States. And this week, he met those siblings face-to-face for the first time when they traveled to visit him in St. John's. I sat down with them this afternoon to hear the story.
We all share a dad. We each have different mothers.
He was from a little town in northern Minnesota, Waukon, Minnesota. That's where he grew up. And then he went into the military in 1941.
He was a soldier stationed here in Newfoundland from 1942 to 1945 during the Second World War. And he and my mother had obviously had a relationship that I was the product of. I've been doing some writing about growing up in Spencer's Cove and the people that I shared my life with in Spencer's Cove. And my wife, Cherry Daly, bought me a DNA kit for Christmas, thinking it would help me find out more about more distant relatives in Newfoundland that would help me in that research and writing. We had no expectation that I was going to find anything beyond that.
I grew up in Nebraska, on a farm in northeastern Nebraska. I grew up knowing I was adopted, and I didn't particularly want to do anything about that until after my parents passed, because I didn't want to do anything that might say there was anything wrong with how they raised me, because there wasn't. You know, this was a wonderful life that I had.
I was the fourth of 6 children in what today would be termed a blended family. But we were a very tight, unified, close family. My stepfather was the only father I had ever known in my life. I was only an infant when I became part of his family.
I do remember some things about my father. He and my mother met in Minneapolis, and the marriage started to fall apart, and he left right around my 5th birthday. My background was very different. Again, I came from a broken home. My mother was ill for much of the time that I was growing up. So I spent most of my time with my grandparents. And it was kind of different for me because I didn't have the family that my other siblings here have. In fact, I grew up very much believing I was an only child.
When I found out about American relatives, I very quickly put 2 and 2 together and figured out what the situation was. So that's when I contacted them. It was an emotional meeting. It's very difficult when you think of meeting somebody face to face for the first time who's your flesh and blood. It hasn't impacted in any negative way on my family. It has just enlarged my family. I have some new people in my life. We didn't grow up as brothers and sisters. We've missed a lot of experiences in time, but now we have an opportunity to grow together.
What has it been like for you to learn that you're not an only child? And not only are you not an only child, you have multiple siblings. And to find all this out at this point in your life, what's that like for you?
I guess and I have a hard time talking about this and not getting emotional. But it's that kind of completing the circle sort of thing. I always felt that there was a hole there somewhere, and that was why genealogy was important to me, because I was trying to fill that hole, and I really kind of did that with these two. So I mean, I have my own children, and they have their families, but it's been a very fulfilling experience.
We sit alike, we walk alike, we hold our hands alike, we have similar careers. We're all educators in some sense. You know, John taught at the university. I taught high school for 31 years. Dennis was with NASA and did lots of teaching and docent work and all of those. I mean, dear old Dad passed along some pretty decent genes. You know, we have to be thankful about that.
It's hard to explain. It was surreal. It really was, to realize that there are two people at least out there that are my siblings that I had never known about, in 78 years. I think of it. I use the term serendipity because it's like finding something special, life enriching, when you weren't looking. And you weren't expecting to find anything. So it was very special.
What do you think he would think about this situation and the three of you finding each other at this point?
I think he would be dumbfounded to begin with, because I actually asked him one time, do I have any brothers and sisters? And he said, not that I know of. Now, I think he might have been less than truthful, because I would be surprised if he didn't know about Brother John. I'm pretty sure he probably did not know about, Judy. But I'm sure that he would be extremely surprised and maybe a little bit chagrined about all that we've learned about him and the places that he was and the people that he knew.
Do you think there could be any more of you out there?
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt.
I'm not convinced we're done yet. Dad was in Newfoundland busy for the years that he was there during World War II. I'm not at all going to be surprised that there aren't more siblings. I joke with my sons about how you can't have too much family. They sort of grumble at me when I say that, but that's my belief. You can't have too much family.
The lighthouse at Cape Race is a relic. The beacon on Newfoundland's southern shore has been steering ships from danger for more than 100 years. It is beautiful, intricate, and gigantic, and one of the only lighthouses of its kind remaining. Here Now's Katie Breen took this look inside a few summers back.
It's either the first or the last shimmer ships see when crossing the Atlantic. For decades, the lighthouse at Cape Race has served as a guiding light, protecting crews from a rugged shore, typically shrouded in fog. According to the heritage group that runs the Cape Race Interpretation Center, at least 94 ships were lost off the coast before the lighthouse was constructed. Then, in 1907, Canada invested in a state-of-the-art system, and it's been beaming a strong signal out to sea ever since.
Well, they're made to last. The engineering back in those days is just superb. It's not like today where everything is economical. Back in those days, they were highly skilled engineers who made these lenses and the equipment.
Nguyen says when hyperradial Fresnel lenses were invented, there was nothing else like them. They were incredibly advanced. This undated photo shows the sheer size of the lighting system. It's gigantic, but its intricacy and strength is arguably even more impressive than its height.
It says on it, it can be seen up to 24 nautical miles, but a lot of good captains are after spotting it on a clear winter's night up as far as 50 miles out at sea.
That distance comes from pieces of meticulously placed glass. There's just one small light source inside, but the lens surrounding it works like an enormous magnifying glass. As it rotates around the bulb, light is picked up and pushed out, flashing once every 7.5 seconds to let sailors know they're nearing Cape Race. The system is 17 feet in diameter and weighs 20 tons, but it turns with ease because the lens is floated on mercury, a dense heavy metal that we now know is highly toxic to humans.
Because of the mercury bath now and the safety factor of it, we don't allow anyone in there unless they're maintenance people with the right training to go inside.
There were only 33 hyperradial lenses ever built. Some were destroyed, others were put in museums or storage. Nguyen says just 12 remain in their towers today. One at Cape Race, the others in Hawaii, Pakistan, Scotland, Ireland, Brazil, Portugal, and the Faroe Islands. Hypothetically, Nguyen says, building a replica today would cost tens of millions of dollars.
You can't replace it today. If they're destroyed, there's no way you can replace it. There's no manufacturer that will make it, because economically it's not viable to make them.
Newer technology made hyperradials obsolete soon after the one at Cape Race was installed. Production stopped, but the light coming from Cape Race hasn't. The same lens from 1907 still turns today. The light source inside has only been updated once, 90 years ago. Nguyen says lenses like the one at Cape Race are like art, markers of inventions past, still beaming bright, serving the same purpose, steering ships to safety.
And to have one still running today is just very precious.
Hopefully it'll work perfect for another 100 years.
Katie Breen, CBC News, Cape Race.
Idalia is now a tropical storm and is whipping the Carolinas with torrential rains, but it hit Florida yesterday as a Category 3 hurricane, causing major damage. This surveillance footage shows the moment floodwaters from Idalia swept away a home. Winds were blowing at over 200 kilometers per hour. Damage in Florida is estimated at $9.6 billion. Still, Idalia appears to have been far less destructive than Hurricane Ian, which struck the state last September. It killed about 150 people. So far, authorities are blaming Idalia for one death, that of a man hit by a falling tree in Georgia. A fire in a derelict apartment building has claimed more than 70 lives in Johannesburg. Many people remain unaccounted for, and the number of deaths is expected to rise. Flames raced through the 5-story building in the city's central business district overnight. Officials say there were no proper fire escapes, and many of the victims became trapped by locked gates and blocked exits. A number of people died trying to jump to safety. It's believed there were about 200 people living in the building, but it's unclear who they were. Many are thought to be foreign nationals in South Africa illegally. The city owns that building, which is designated as an apartheid-era historic site. Well, some community groups say governments have not prepared for the influx of asylum seekers arriving in Canada. Those groups say they're ready to play a bigger role if they can get more funding, rather. But in the meantime, some newcomers are living in difficult conditions. Thomas Degg has more.
There are about, I believe, 20 or 22 men here.
For Canadian community groups, it's come to this. Cots and mattresses laid out on the floor, even shipping containers, soon to be transformed into makeshift homes so asylum seekers can have a place to sleep.
We are trying to assist the agencies, the shelters, the government, because they were not ready for this.
Just this one church is housing 46 newcomers, and there are more arriving all the time. So the church has outfitted this bus to house 6 people overnight while the temperature allows it before the winter arrives. But as you can see, it's really only a temporary solution. In Toronto this summer, some newcomers had to sleep in the streets, with advocates warning more forced migration globally, and Canada's housing crisis are combining to squeeze all groups providing emergency shelter.
It's not a Toronto issue, it's a Canada-wide issue. It's impacting every city.
Calgary's Centre for Newcomers warns Ottawa didn't properly plan before opening the door to more migrants. This 55-year-old man landed in July from Kenya. We agreed to conceal his identity as he claims asylum here.
How does what you heard about Canada and what you have, the experience you've gone through for the past month, how do the two compare?
I would say Canada is a great town. It's a very nice country. At the back of my mind, I had not foreseen coming out here and probably staying for that long without, probably getting a job or housing or something like that.
70,000 asylum claimants have come so far this year, and the government is pledging an extra $200 million. Charities like Matthew House Ottawa say they can handle the influx, but need help.
Okay. Let's help them increase their capacity, and we can deal with refugee claimants arriving in the country without any problems at all.
Advocates fear stopgap measures won't hold up when temperatures drop. Thomas Dagg, CBC News, Vaughan, Ontario.
Well, as we head into the last long weekend of the summer, a lot of Canadian motorists are bracing for a spike in fuel prices. And as CBC's Renee Filipponi explains, the pain at the pump can spread into other expenses.
The price at most pumps in Vancouver is more than $2 a litre, and it could get worse.
I mean, they're already too high right now, so going any higher is just a bit ridiculous.
Prices normally spike heading into long weekends as Canadians hit the road.
When people drive, what happens? There's demand for gasoline. So when there's demand for gasoline, when the supply is restrictive, what happens to pricing? It goes up. What we expect.
This analyst says the supply is restricted because of refinery issues. A fire in Louisiana took a refinery offline earlier this week. And then there is Hurricane Idalia, which has led to the stockpiling of gas.
When you have hurricane season, refineries actually had to shut down for several weeks post-hurricane because they had damages.
It's basically companies doing
But not everyone is buying it.
The oil companies are gouging consumers. They got to fill up
Economist Mark Lee says Canadians are struggling to make ends meet, and the government needs to step in.
So there's no reason why you couldn't have a more regulated price system that allows companies to make reasonable profits on the investments that they've made, but that gets rid of this kind of gouging behavior.
Prices in Canada are higher than the U.S. due to various taxes, including the carbon tax. There are calls across the country for Ottawa to pause that tax to deal with high prices.
Birria grilled cheese for Asia.
Kelly McKenzie is selling sandwiches to the crowds at the Pacific National Exhibition. He runs 6 food trucks. Gas costs him nearly $1,200 a week right now.
We've had to raise our prices, which is hard because, we want to offer, a product that's good for families. Birria grilled cheese here.
Another example of how high gas prices can raise the cost of living far from the pumps. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, it was a bit of a wet day for many on the eastern and southern parts of the island, but as the old saying goes, great day for the ducks. Ashley will have a look ahead at the long-range forecast coming up. Well, before we get to the weather, stargazers around the world were treated to a rare sight last night, a blue supermoon. Now, a blue moon occurs when there are 2 full moons in one calendar month, and this month was even more out of the ordinary because both full moons were supermoons, and supermoons appear much larger than usual because the moon is at its closest point to the Earth in its orbit. Last night's moon is being called the largest full moon for this year. The first full moon appeared on August 1st, and the next super blue moon won't happen until 2037. So we have a little while to wait for the next one. But a gorgeous, gorgeous sight out there for sure. Gorgeous as we're heading into the weekend, a really good forecast for the long weekend for most folks in this province.
Yeah, it does. It looks pretty nice. Hopefully it stays that way, but we are going to be dominated by a ridge of high pressure, and that is certainly good news. Let's take a look at what's going on as we head through the next couple of days. So this is Friday evening. You can see that clearing trend really in behind the province, I should say, over the Maritimes. But it isn't going to be that great up across Labrador. We're still looking at the chance of some showers as we get into Saturday, pretty much across the board in Labrador. Otherwise, lots of sunshine across the island through your Saturday. You may see a few cloudy periods here and there, but overall, the weather is going to be absolutely beautiful. That shower activity will continue. Very isolated in nature, but we're still looking at that chance. The other thing you'll note, after tomorrow feeling very fall-like, Saturday is going to be right back into feeling like summer. 19 to 22 degrees pretty much across the board. Up across Labrador, you're looking at temperatures around 21 for Happy Valley Goose Bay, along the Strait about 19. But as you head towards Cartwright and northern portions of Labrador, your temperatures will be a tad cooler than that, so 11 to 14 degrees through the day. Sunday, beautiful. Your temperatures are really going to start to warm up. This is well above where we should be sitting this time of year, typically around 19 degrees for the island. Temperatures up across Labrador typically sit around 14 degrees right now. So daytime highs between 20 and 23 will be absolutely beautiful on Sunday. Still hanging on to that chance of showers though for Lab West along the Strait, but the island will be lovely. Lots of sunshine again, maybe a few cloudy periods in the mix here and there, but overall 19 to 24 degrees will be the daytime high. Now, into Monday, the long range forecast, the actual holiday looking nice, 21 degrees, again, pretty dry really as we head through into the long range forecast. 20 by the time we get into Tuesday. You may see a bit more cloud cover move in, but overall that is a pretty lovely forecast for a long stretch of weather. Central and western Newfoundland, there's nothing to complain about there. It may be a bit breezy though on Sunday, pretty much island wide. We're looking at winds gusting out of the southwest between 20 to as much as 40 or maybe even 50 kilometers per hour. A lovely weekend for the last food fishery weekend as we head into what is or will be fall. But for eastern Labrador, you're looking at a nice stretch as well. Look at that, 21 to 23 degrees as you head towards the end of the week. And same thing for western Labrador, a bit of a dip there. I talked about how beautiful the sunset was the other night. Remember that, Carolyn?
Yes.
Oh, there you go. That was it. This is the view from Signal Hill. Mitzi shared that great shot with us. If you have any, you can send them to my Facebook page, but the best place is to email them at nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Beautiful shot of the harbor. Great shot. Thank you so much for that. And what a fantastic forecast for the next few days.
I know where I'll be, outside.
Yeah, as much as possible. That's it for us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good night.